Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. MC-Mura here, and in today's video we are gonna try to figure out which of the new Street Fighter characters are the best. Now this is obviously a very highly subjective topic. Everyone's gonna have their own different opinions, and that is completely fine. We are gonna be talking about each of these characters individually at first, just generally talking about their designs, their popularity, generally their story and all of that stuff, and then at the end we will come to a verdict on which character is the best new addition to the Street Fighter universe. The general rule here is that these characters have to be playable for the first time in Street Fighter V. I know there are many characters who got heavily redesigned, like for example Seth was like almost completely a brand new character in Street Fighter V, but certainly Seth had history before, since they were in Street Fighter 4. Even if they got heavily redesigned, they are still canonically the same character, so they are excluded from this list. With that being said, let's not waste any more time and just get to it, so let's get started. Necalli was the first new character to be added to Street Fighter V. Capcom was certainly going for a big bad guy vibe with him, and he was supposed to be a pretty major character, it seems. Certainly Akuma wasn't in the game for the first season, and he was the replacement. I think visually they did a good job on him. He does have a very vicious and very savage qualities to him, which isn't really common in the Street Fighter universe, and he was obviously designed aggressively with the V system in mind. When he transforms in V-Trigger, it is one of the most drastic and dramatic V-Trigger activations in the game. His design in V-Trigger is pretty cool, and he has a boss look to him when he is in V-Trigger. Now unfortunately with Necalli, he never really took off, and I feel like that was for two main reasons. The first one is that for a boss character or a boss style character, his gameplay was extremely dry. If you compare Necalli to the other boss characters like Bison or Urian or Thess or Gil, even if they are not always top tiers, they have a very flashy, dominant fighting style, right? While Necalli was always super dry, and that did him no favors. The second part is obviously the story mode. Story mode was really hurtful to Necalli. He lost almost every other fight, and that really did him no favors. And certainly once Akuma got introduced, Necalli became a complete afterthought, which is unfortunate because I think with a little bit more care, and if Capcom really actually tried a little bit harder with Necalli, they could have had something really special on their hand. Unfortunately, I doubt we will see any more from Necalli in the future installments. It is a bit of a wasted opportunity in my opinion.
I am Rashid of the Turbulent Wind. Remember the name well.
Rashid is up next, and I feel like he's one of the more unique characters in Street Fighter V. When it comes to gameplay, he certainly has his own set of mechanics, like the ability to turn his dash into a run, his off-the-wall jumps, and the general aspect of his mobility being altered by the tornadoes are pretty interesting. Now when it comes to his visual design, we all know that Capcom have a history with stereotypes, so it could have been a lot worse for Rashid. His design certainly isn't eye-catching, but I won't say it's offensive or really bad either. It's just there, pretty average in my opinion. And when it comes to popularity and gameplay, obviously Rashid I feel like is generally well liked by the community. Certainly the Rashido meme is one of the biggest memes that has surfaced from Street Fighter V. Tournaments wise and in the competitive circuit, he is one of the most prevalent character. Maybe too prevalent, and he have seen too much tournament success, so there is a little bit of boredom from him in the tournament scenes. But otherwise, I think Rashid in general is overall a successful character, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have seen any more of him in the upcoming Street Fighter games or maybe even a future Marvel game. When it comes to the newcomers in Street Fighter V, I think it's fair to say that Laura is the character with the most mainstream video game appeal, right? She is the character that you will see the most in fan art. She is the character you will see the most in cosplays and all of that good stuff. And I think this is both the result of circumstances and the result of the character design as well. Certainly she is designed to be a super attractive lady, so that will instantly gather a lot of attention, and you really have to think that she was the only new female character out of the launch roster of Street Fighter V. Pre-launch is certainly the window where the game is getting the most attention, so naturally Laura got a lot of attention from everyone, and that really helped her case. Now, when it comes to gameplay, she is a hyper rushdown grappler character. This is a playstyle that attracts many players. As a matter of fact, when you look at the player stats, Laura is the second most used newcomer in Street Fighter V. We all fight Laura all the time online. Now, the thing about her playstyle is that if you don't play against Laura, there is a good chance that you dislike fighting against her because she can be very oppressive. Now, she's also a character who has seen a lot of tournament success thanks to Idom and many other fantastic players. I think it's fair to say that she is one of the strongest contenders to take this title, and I do think she is a character that we will be seeing more of in the future.
2 minutes. I'll finish you in 2 minutes.
I know some people may not agree with me on this one, but I really think that FANG is one of the most well-designed characters in Street Fighter V in general. I know he's a character that is not really liked, and I don't like him either, but you are not supposed to like him. FANG is not supposed to be cool. He is a coward, he is a piece of shit, he knows that he can't stand up against Bison, so his only chance of survival is actually hiding behind Bison, right? What makes FANG so special is the fact that his design, the visual design, his gameplay and his story, all three of them work together perfectly. FANG's main gameplay trait is poison. He would rather poison you and run away, drain your health over time, than actually fight you. When he's up close and fighting you, he's plus on block and everything, but he does no damage. He's the ultimate low risk, low reward, and that is exactly what fits a coward. When you really take a look at his visual design, his main attributes is the poison, right? And his hands will actually inflict the poison, but he's hiding his hand with his long sleeves. His entire design is there to look creepy, but actually somewhat deceptively menacing, and I think that works really well for the character. He is probably not a character we will see much more of after Street Fighter V, but I genuinely do think that he is one of the best designed characters in this game.
It's so nice to meet.
If there was ever a character that was the victim of these circumstances, that character would be Kolin. Kolin came out at possibly the worst possible time. She came out as the second character in Season 2. Back then the game was heavily criticized for the launch issues, the Season 1 mistakes, and Season 2 was supposed to consist of only new characters and Akuma, and she was the character that launched just after Akuma. And the thing is, she was featured in the game's story mode, so many players assumed that the rest of the Season 2 characters are gonna be recycled NPCs from the game's story mode, like Taylor, like Azams, and all of that stuff. So there was a really big cloud of negativity surrounding Street Fighter V at that time. And I do think that took a huge impact on the reception of Kolin as a character in general. Now, when it comes to her actual gameplay and visual design, I do think Kolin pulls off the Eastern European femme fatale look really well. She is a very attractive woman, she looks deceiving but menacing, a little bit psychotic. She seems to have a really big hatred for military and military personnel in general, so that's a little bit interesting. Her fighting style is a mix of Systema and she also had ice powers. I believe she was the only ice user in Street Fighter universe at that time, so that was also pretty cool, no pun intended. I do think Kolin is a pretty well designed character overall. Unfortunately, like I said, she was a victim of the circumstances. One fun fact that you may not know is that Kolin was actually supposed to be in the launch roster. She was supposed to be in Laura's place, but actually Capcom switched them around, made Laura the launch character and Kolin the DLC character, and unfortunately that didn't really bode that well for Kolin. But hey, at least she still has the coolest voice line in the game. There is so much to talk about when it comes to Ed. Let's first start talking about his visual design, his story and his origins. Ed was supposed to be a clone body for M. Bison, so he is carrying psycho powers and he was raised by Balrog. This gave all of us a lot of hope. We all hoped that Ed would be the Street Fighter equivalent of Rock Howard, or at the very least he's gonna be like a new generation villain. But unfortunately that didn't happen. Instead of giving us the cool teenage boy from the game story mode, Capcom gave us yet another dude bro muscular guy, which is honestly very disappointing. They didn't have to sell us on him being able to punch others. I mean, Street Fighter already have like a wrestler girl who hit a world dictator with her ass. Like, you didn't have to sell me on Ed being able to punch the other characters. He already have psycho powers, for God's sake, right? So that design, at least to me, was very disappointing, and I know many others got disappointed by the version that we got. Now also I have to say that his main default costume is one of the worst designed costumes in Street Fighter's history, period. And when it comes to the story, Ed's story is all over the place and it's confusing. Is he trying to destroy Shadaloo, or is he trying to make a new Shadaloo? If he's trying to destroy Shadaloo, then why is his group called Neo Shadaloo? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, at least to me, I don't understand what is even its motive or what is he trying to do. He's kinda all over the place. Now when it comes to gameplay, unfortunately Ed is also very divisive. When you take a look at the player stats, something that's really interesting is the fact that he is the most used newcomer in Street Fighter V, and that is mostly because of his controls. It is no execution. You don't have to do fireball motions, you don't have to do uppercuts, dragon punch, charges, none of that. All of his special moves are done by simple inputs. So he's very easy for newcomers to pick up and do well with him, or at least get the hang of the game. So that's why I can see him being popular with newcomers, but also that's why I can see many of the older players not really liking him because of that same exact reason. It is a bit of a controversial topic in my opinion. Maybe we can talk about it at another time. I'm gonna be completely honest here. Personally, I am not a fan of Ed. So even if you think that he is one of the better designed characters, I just don't see it, so sorry about that one. Abigail has had quite the ride in Street Fighter V. When he was first revealed, or at least when his first trailer came out, this happened during EVO, and during that event, Tekken had announced that they were getting Geese Howard, so the news of Street Fighter getting Abigail wasn't met with positive feedback. As a matter of fact, Abigail was really hated at first, but I think that over time people warmed up to him, and there is some charm to Abigail in my opinion. Even though he isn't like the prettiest character to look at or whatever, but he is kinda cute. Like he will make you laugh, at least with his post animation or his post attack animation. All of that, there is a charm there that is undeniable. So I think over time people just warmed up to Abigail. And when it comes to gameplay, he is one of the characters who obviously satisfy a certain archetype, the hulking big body character. He have seen a lot of gameplay both in tournaments and in online play, certainly one of the more popular newcomers to the game. Now, in terms of the actual gameplay itself, I do have my reservations with Abigail. There are a couple of things that I would change about him. I do think he's probably too good and too easy for a character of his archetype, but I mean that's just me and that always comes down to preference. Overall, I think for a big body, I personally prefer Abigail to Hugo, and I would like to see him back in the future games.
Have you considered your destiny? Do you believe in fate?
Menat was certainly one of the better received characters in Street Fighter V Season 2. I'm gonna say that her animations and her general aesthetic made her very popular very quickly. A lot of her players really enjoyed the old gymnastics aspect of her movement, and obviously Menat is a top tier waifu that is pretty much undeniable. She is super cute. Now, when it comes to gameplay, Menat also offered some really interesting new elements to Street Fighter. Her orb mechanic was unlike anything that we have ever seen before, and her V-Trigger 1, at least in that reveal trailer, looked like the most impressive thing we have seen in Street Fighter V here. Now, when she came out and when we got our hands on Menat and tried her ourselves, we found that she did require a rather passive playstyle. Think of her as an alternate Dulcim of some sort, which isn't a very easy or very popular playstyle. Then add that to the fact that her V-Trigger 1 required a lot of execution. I know so many players who tell me that they would play Menat if they could perform her V-Trigger 1 combos and V-Trigger 1 setups and all of that. So the execution barrier was really high with Menat, especially when she first came out, and certainly the general playstyle isn't one that is gonna be very popular with the players. I think as a character, the visual and aesthetics, she is really well liked. Gameplay and popularity wise, maybe not so much just because of the nature of her gameplay and the execution requirement.
Let's party if you think you can keep up.
If Kolin was the victim of circumstances, then Zeku is pretty much the exact opposite of that. Capcom had already revealed Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. Many players were interested into checking out the game again, and the game was generally being viewed in a much better light. And thankfully, Zeku didn't disappoint. From the very first reveal trailer for Zeku, we were intrigued. What is he gonna look like? What's up with the old guy and the young guy? Why does young Zeku look like Strider? Zeku in general is there to fulfill a particular archetype that was missing from Street Fighter V, the old fighter, right? And generally in fighting games, at least most of the ones I played, it is generally an old Kung Fu guy or an old Shoto or an old Mishima. I don't think you can really call them Kung Fu guys, but an older ninja was not something that I remember seeing before. Maybe at another fighting game, but I honestly don't remember. So Zeku was there to fulfill the ninja slot and as well to fulfill the old man slot. And what we all didn't expect was the Strider follow-up to the story. And Zeku, in all honesty, is one of the best animated characters to have exist in Street Fighter V. His animations are absolutely fantastic. It is an absolutely charming style of animation. Typically, I'm gonna be completely honest, I was never really interested in old characters, but Zeku is the big exception of that rule, at least for me, right? And gameplay wise, Zeku is very unique because, as I said, he is a twist on the Akuma archetype, like the general character who have everything. But instead of balancing Zeku out by giving him low HP, or like low mobility or whatever, what Capcom did is that they separated the tools between the old Zeku and the young Zeku. So you weren't handicapped by HP or any other artificial handicap, you were just handicapped by your decision making. When do you want to be young Zeku and when you want to be old Zeku? He's certainly one of the best designed character I feel in Street Fighter V in general, and he's an absolute fan favorite. Falke was certainly one of the most criticized newcomers in Street Fighter V. A lot of players think that her personality is very dry, a lot of others think that her animations are pretty stiff, and while I see where they are coming from, I think there is a certain charm to Falke. At least that is my opinion. Falke has the personality of an older sister, right? And while I get that this might not make the best personality type for a fighting game character, at least there is some charm and uniqueness to it. She's probably the most realistic Street Fighter V character, personality wise at least. And when it comes to Falke herself, something that is very special to me is that she is voice acted by the same voice actress that did 2B in Nier Automata. Nier Automata is one of my favorite video games of all time, so always hearing Falke just put a smile on my face. So at least for me, that's why I always had a soft spot for Falke. Doesn't obviously hurt that she is a top tier waifu as well. Now, when it comes to gameplay, Falke is a mid-range zoning or control character. She is supposed to be played very lame and very passive. A lot of players may not really like that. She does carry the same simple motions input schema as Ed, and again many players may not like that. So she have an unpopular playstyle and unpopular control scheme, which made her overall a not very common character when it comes to player usage.
I'll fight this battle. Why? Because it is my
Man, where do I even start with G? I feel like G is one of the biggest wins for Street Fighter V. He is one of these characters that you know someone out there just got this game or got back into it just to play as G. He is oozing charisma and is honestly one of the coolest characters that I have seen in video games in recent years. Not in just fighting games, in video games period. Now G is certainly connected to Q, which is one of the biggest mysteries of the Street Fighter universe, so there was a lot of intrigue to G. And thankfully G didn't disappoint. He didn't give us any answers regarding Q and just added more questions, but honestly I think I wouldn't have it any other way. When it comes to gameplay, G also fulfills a very interesting archetype. I like to call him the defensive grappler. He's pretty much a mix of a zoning neutral character, but one with also a very powerful command grab and very powerful offensive rushdown once he gets to activate his V trigger. And certainly doesn't hurt that G have also some of the biggest meme worthy animations and comments in general. Who can forget Power to the ass or light it up? Like, he have some of the most badass and iconic lines in the game, one of the characters who have seen a ton of tournament success, and also pretty much one of the more popular characters online. I think it's fair to say that everyone loves G, to be honest. Certainly, like I said earlier, one of the biggest wins for Street Fighter V. Lucia is the final new character to be added to Street Fighter V, well until we get Akira and potentially the 5th character of Season V, but obviously that they are not out by the time of the recording. So Lucia is one of these characters who is generally viewed by two different perspectives. If you play Lucia or if you like her, you think that Lucia is super cute. She is adorable. A lot of the players who like Lucia like the cup of coffee and her accent, and in general you find a lot of appeal and a lot of charm in that. Her gameplay is also fairly interesting because her fireball is very unconventional. She does have an unconventional Dragon Punch as well. The run mechanic is not very unique, but it's also pretty interesting how it was implemented, especially with her V skills. Now, there is the other perspective who seem to think that Lucia is a wasted character slot, that she didn't really belong, that they wish another character were in her place, that we don't need any more Final Fight character, and that she is just another Cammy or Karen style of character and we already have enough of those. I think these are the two perspectives that you see the most regarding Lucia. Personally, I am a fan of Lucia. You know that this channel is called MC-Mura. MC is for Metro City. Metro City is the city from Final Fight. I'm a big fan of Final Fight. I feel like I'm one of these 3 or 4 people who knew who Lucia was before she came out in Street Fighter V. And I generally am a big fan of the character, and she is one of my favorites. Is she one of the better designed characters? I'm not really sure, to be honest, but I think she is really cute and pretty faithful to her Final Fight part actually, so I do find her to be really charming. Now it's time for the final verdict to decide which of these characters are my personal favorite and who I think is the best new character in Street Fighter V. Now for me, this came down to the Phone Wing 3. It came down to Laura, it came down to Zeku and G. And in my personal opinion, the absolute winner is Zeku. Now, it is obvious for someone like me to have an interest in Laura, right? Because she is obviously a hot Latina, so it's very easy for her to grab my attention. G is a character who's oozing with charisma. It's very natural to get drawn to G and just check him out and be amazed by his design in general, right? But Zeku is one of these characters who by nature I wouldn't be interested in. Like I said previously, I never really cared about the old guys, right? But in all honesty, that character won me over. Zeku had the most uphill battle to fight, and in my opinion he 100% delivered. I absolutely love this character. I love how he's designed, love his animation, his costumes. I even love little details like how he wears his watch on his hand. I love his music. His fighting style is absolutely incredible. So for all of these reasons, I do think that, at least for me, in my opinion, Zeku is hands down the best new addition to Street Fighter V. What are your thoughts? Who is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I will be leaving a link to the Patreon page and the Discord server page in the description below. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe.